And welcome into the Make the Money and Run podcast, sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Capitola and the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Whether you're in Silicon Valley or on the shores of the Pacific Ocean near Santa Cruz, check out the Britannia Arms, especially on Sundays for Sunday Ticket and the NFL package that they have there. I will be there on Sunday for an NFL kickoff show, 9:45 on the West Coast, beach and football. And come join us or get online with us and join the StreamYard podcast. All right, Charlie O, Vasu Vatapati here. A lot to talk about in the NFL. NCAA basketball started, NCAA football, BCS standings. Let's start off with a guest. He's written a book. It is called When They Were, Where They Were Then. First-person accounts of 15 broadcasters and how they reached the pinnacle of their career. He's also the Stanford play-by-play voice for college football, college basketball. He's been in the Bay Area for a long time, former ESPNer for 8 years with Baseball Tonight and Sports Centers and various other jobs at ESPN. Welcome in, Scott Reiss. Hi, Scott. How are you?
I'm great, man. It's good to be here. Good to be podcasting, right? It's what we do now.
It's what we do now. It's good to see you. It's been a while since I've seen you. Charlie and Vasu here with you on the Make the Money and Run show. Let's get into the book right away. The book, as I said, the book has come out the other day. Or at least the post of it has come out. There it is again. Where they were then. And I have the 15 unique accounts. The title says 15 unique accounts of first-person stories of how they have rise to pinnacle of sports broadcasting, including Heidi Watney, yourself, Scott Van Pelt, Trey Wingo, Mayne, various other luminaries in the sports world. And you even got an endorsement from Bob Costas. So tell us how the book came about and what your plan is with it and how it just came about.
So, and this is actually part of the first chapter of the book is sort of the backstory, but I was having dinner with a friend of mine about 5 years ago in Berkeley. And she was sort of breaking into the business and I was giving her tips on this and that and how to go about it. And it's such a strange business, TV sports to try and get into. And I was regaling her with stories of my small market TV days back in Panama City, Florida and Utica, New York, and just some of the absolute weird, wild stuff. Not only that I had to do to get in and to get those first jobs, but the stuff that you have to deal with in these tiny middle of nowhere towns doing TV. And she was in hysterics listening to these stories. And she said, "Oh my God, you should write a book." And I said, "Well, it's funny. I've thought about that because I've always wanted to do that. I wish I had this when I was breaking into the business, this sort of roadmap for what I could have expected." But I said, I'm one guy and I've got a little ESPN cachet, but I'm not, nobody's rushing to the store to buy my biography. And she said, "Well, but you got friends who went through the same stuff, right?" And I thought, that actually makes sense. And so I started racking my brain and I thought, you know what? I've got all these, friends and former colleagues from ESPN and other major networks. Like they all went through the same thing I did, I presume. So I started getting on the phone, talking to some people, and the concept kind of took shape. I ran it by my agent at the time and he talked to their publishing folks and the response was, yeah, maybe, kind of, sort of, it may make some money, but I don't think they realized the type of clientele that I might be able to pull for this. And so I put it on the back burner. I was so busy at the time between Stanford and KTVU that I just sort of let it go for the time being. And then I got a call in May from a friend of mine who actually had started a publishing company. And I must have told him about the book idea, right, over beers. And he said, "That book you told me about 5 years ago, I want to do it." I said, "All right, let's see if we can get it rolling." So I started, going back through the list of potential contributors and calling some of my contacts. And the response was awesome. I mean, I couldn't believe how many folks, before I even got the plea finished, were like, "Yes, I'm in. What do you need?" And these are, again, these are high profile guys. So once, you get Kenny and Scott Van Pelt and Trey Wingo and Buccigross and these guys signing on, it's like, all right, let's do this thing. So they were on board. They each gave me one chapter of their sort of best anecdotes and backstories from trying to get into the business. And you put them together and you got a book.
Heidi Watney wrote, I wrote a chapter, but it's a really fun collection of stories from your favorite sports broadcasters about this crazy biz called Where They Were Then. Scott Reiss, Scott Van Pelt, Kenny Mayne, Trey Wingo, Dave Fleming, Neil Everett, Stan Verrett, John Buccigross, Jamie Sire, Dari Noka, Andy Katz, Steve Bunin, Kevin Cork, Bill Pito, and you got an endorsement from Bob Costas that said the joke was, he's very glib. I love Bob Costas. He said, if I didn't have photos of NBC executives, I probably would have gone the same route as these guys. So that was very funny. And the fact that you got him to endorse it a little bit certainly puts cachet on it, Scott.
Yeah, well, and the quote was so good we had to put that one on the cover. But the endorsements, and that's the great thing about this, is when you've got all these guys who are connected, right? It's pretty easy to get some cool endorsement names. So we've got Costas, we got Jerry Reiss, we got Andrew Luck, we got Darius Rucker. It's a pretty good list of endorsers for the book, John Smoltz, and so it's been a fun process.
Go ahead, Charlie.
So, Scott, the one thing that I heard there as you were talking about this wasn't just a COVID book. You didn't just sit in June and go, hey, you know what? I'm a little bored. I can't get outside, so I'm going to put this book together. This thing has been percolating up here in your mind for the last 7-8 years. I mean, this thing took a while to come together.
Yes. It was not a COVID book, although COVID certainly gave me a lot more time to put, the focus and the energy into it. And it's just been a strange process, because usually when you think about, writing a book, the author is writing the entire book. And that's how long does that take? Months, years, right? If you're writing 200 pages, whatever it is. For me, I wrote 3 chapters, right? I wrote the intro, I wrote my chapter, and I wrote the epilogue. The rest of it was me organizing a book more than it was writing a book, and trying to keep, 14 other very high profile, very busy people on task, and, get them to sort of do their homework, right? Because we wanted to have this out by the holidays. So it was a really interesting process. And COVID gave me, I think, the time to really pour into it more than I otherwise would have. But no, this is not a COVID book. It is a long time coming, and I'm glad to see it actually happened.
Scott Reiss, our guest, where they were then, 15 unique accounts, previously untold accounts of the rise to pinnacle of sports broadcasting, including the names that we mentioned, formerly at ESPN, now the Stanford play-by-play voice for Cardinal football and basketball, Comcast Sportsnet Bay Area when he came back to the West Coast. He's an alumni of Stanford, a communications degree, master's in sociology, and went into the broadcasting world right out of Stanford. Let me ask you one thing about Stanford here real quick, because it is your alma mater, and we'll get to the Pac-12 stuff in a second, but I really wanted to get your take because I had met him a few times, and I never really got a firsthand account of what a guy like Bob Murphy was like to deal with and work with in terms of how nice he was and how he was with young broadcasters, because I heard a lot of things about him and dealing with young broadcasters coming through the Stanford program.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to working with him because obviously, I was two play-by-play guys removed from Bob. Dave Fleming was in between us. But I can attest to just what an incredibly nice, down-to-earth human being Bob was. His fans, I don't have to tell you what a great broadcaster he was, because everybody who listened to him and admired him certainly knows that. But he was just so giving, so willing to, I remember when I was a student broadcaster, right? I mean, I did KZSU back in my Stanford days a million years ago, and I was on the road with men's basketball for a season. And, Bob was the dude, right? He was the professional guy, and I was the student guy. I mean, he would talk to me, he'd give me tips, advice. We'd just shoot the breeze about, the team and this and that. He was just a very warm, caring person. And that to me, much more than the broadcasting prowess is what I remember about Bob. Just a terrific, terrific person.
Okay, I think Vasu just I don't know why. I think he just became a Sphinx. There we go. He'll come back. Scott, one thing I always love to find out, and I as you were talking about putting this book together, I had this vision of herding cats, because trying to put that many busy people together and keep that coordinated had to just be an incredible, tough task. Out of all those folks that you put together, and I know you've known a lot of those folks for a long time, what story, and I don't want you to give the book away,
sure,
but who gave you a story that surprised you the most?
Oh, man. First of all, herding cats is a good analogy. I would say more like herding tigers or Bengals, lions. Boy, the stories are so good, and that's what makes this book, I think, pretty special. Is this isn't me telling their stories. This is them telling their stories, right? And, you watch Van Pelt, you watch Neil Everett, you watch, Butchergrass. There's no one else like these guys, right? On TV, they've got the distinct style. Kenny Mayne, right? There's only one Kenny Mayne. And so the way they tell their own stories is what makes this sing. When I read Van Pelt's chapter, I honestly had to sit down when I was done, and I looked around. I'm like, this is gold. I mean, this is like, because he's such an incredible broadcaster, and yet, his likability and his, everyman appeal is through the roof, and it comes through, in these stories. So, there are things like Van Pelt talks about his what became sort of the event that put him on the map was a sit down he got with Tiger Woods when Scott was at the Golf Channel, just really trying to feel his way out as a reporter. He didn't have the TV background that a lot of us did. His is sort of the anti-story. And the Tiger interview and that event sort of put him on the map. And I knew about it, but hearing him tell the story and sort of take us back to this sit down with Tiger Woods right after he won the Masters in '97, that incredible run, was like, wow, like this is like nobody else can tell this story. So, that was awesome. There's plenty on the other end of the spectrum that are just funny, goofy. Trey Wingo is our social media guy. We've got him on a rotating schedule, right? So yesterday was Heidi, today's Trey, blasting social media, tell everybody about it. And his resume pre-TV is hysterical. The things that he did for work for the first 4 or 5 years of his adult life, you would never have any idea, right, that this is one of the most famous sportscasters in America. And, guys who got fired from jobs that you wouldn't believe, guys who applied for jobs you would never in a million years expect and didn't get those jobs. I just, and then you get to the, what we actually had to do in, the Utica, New Yorks, the Kalispell, Montanas, the Scottsbluff, Nebraskas, all these places that these folks, came through. And it's not covering, you're not covering NFL and NBA and MLB. You're covering, high school volleyball. You're covering rodeo. In some cases, you're covering ostrich races. I mean, just again, some of the particulars about the job description in these early places is what makes it so fun.
Suvada Party back with you. Of course, we have a guest, and I say Bob Murphy, and Murphy's Law comes up on the internet now.
Well
So
done.
let's take it that way. Scott Reiss, our guest, Stanford play-by-play voice. You can get to him at Stanford Voice and on Instagram at Scott Reiss TV. All right, let's move on here. The book you can get the book at Amazon. I saw a website for you, scottreiss.com. Is that correct? Where else can you get the book at?
So Amazon is the place right now. It'll be in bookstores hopefully next week. But right now it is Amazon. You can search the title, Where They Were Then. You can search my name, Reiss, last name. It'll come up. It's off to a good start. It reached bestseller status on day one in a category, and hopefully a couple others will follow. So I think it's got good momentum out of the gate, and we're hoping that people like it and they review it and they tell their friends and buy it for Christmas.
I think 15 stories of famous broadcasters, even if you're not in the broadcasting biz, would be very interesting to read how people get started, because people ask me all the time, how you get started, even on our little level, how you get started, and you just go from there.
And those are great stories, right? You've got great stories. Like everybody in this business has awesome stories about what it took to actually get on TV or on the radio, whatever it is. And that's what makes this cool.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Scott Reiss, our guest. Little Pac-12 football here. Let's talk Pac-12 football. I know I was there Friday night. I didn't get a chance to see it. That was a rough night Friday night. I didn't realize Stanford was as injured as they were, and they're going with a lot of young guys there. So obviously not the expectations of a David Shaw team, but real quickly, just what you're looking at from Stanford, not only for the rest of this year and maybe into next year with some of the young guys that you have on the team.
Yeah, I mean, for this year, I think it starts and ends with the quarterback. If Tanner McKee is healthy enough to come back and play, it changes the entire narrative. I mean, he's really, really good. He's like first-round talent good, potentially. So if Tanner plays, Stanford can play with anybody, right? We saw them. I mean, they beat Oregon, they beat, SC down in so that's the upside, for the short term. If Tanner doesn't play, it's, we saw what happened last week. It's a tough road. David Shaw's already come out and said that he's going to play a true freshman quarterback this week if Tanner can't go. And, again, you're talking about a kid who'd be true freshman. First of all, Stanford's playbook, like true freshman quarterbacks never. Like Andrew Luck didn't play as a true freshman, right? You just don't do that. But I think he's at a point now, and this kid Ari Patu, who has looked good in the practice, he actually was one of Stanford's first ever early enrollees. Most schools do that as a regular thing. Stanford hasn't, but he was actually there in the spring. So anyway, more details than you want. The bottom line is, there could be some bumps the rest of this year, depending on the quarterback position, if we can get some receivers healthy. But I think big picture, everybody can come back, right? I mean, the entire offense, like not only the 11 starters, but probably the next 4 guys on the depth chart who all have major roles, can all be back next year. So the upside is pretty substantial. If you get everybody coming back, you get healthy, and you kind of press reset and go in 2022. So I think I'm still pretty bullish on long term. It's just this has obviously been a tough run the last few weeks with the injuries.
No doubt about it. All right, Scott Reiss, our guest here. Let me ask you about Oregon real quick. I cover the Pac-12 for the Fox Network and behind the scenes there, so I've seen every Pac-12 game. Are you surprised? I'm a little surprised Oregon's number 3 because I think they're somewhat inconsistent in my book, at least because I watch it. Like I said, I watch all the games. Brown has been a little inconsistent in quarterback. They've lost Verdell. That big win at Ohio State kind of gets neutralized with Stanford. No offense, but it does get neutralized with Stanford a little bit. And here they are at number 3 ahead of Ohio State. What do you think of Oregon? I know Travis Dye's had a good year, but Oregon to me just seems like there's something missing about Oregon for me to put them in the top 4.
Yeah, I think what's missing, there are 2 things missing, and you hit on both of them, is consistent quarterback play and CJ Verdell. When they had the 1-2 punch of Verdell and Travis Dye, it was a completely different look offensively. When Anthony Brown has played really well, that's when they suddenly look the part of a top 5 team. But for the most part this season, I have watched Oregon and said, this is a very good football team, but it's not a great football team. Right. It's not, to me, a top 5 in the country. But you are what your record says you are. And the bottom line is, how many truly great teams are there across the country, right? So, they're in the mix. They will be in the mix unless and until they, stub a toe, which they very well could do, because they've got a few tough games. You got to play in Salt Lake City for one. They've got a couple of tough games left on the schedule. But I think that they are a team that, defensively is very good and offensively can be very, very good. So, they're still dangerous. And it would be nice for the Pac-12 to actually have some representation for a change in the college football playoffs. So we'll see.
Go ahead, Charlie.
Scott, to me, for the conference to do well, USC has to be a factor. And when they blew the coach out after the second week, Vasu will tell you, I'm sitting there with duct tape around my head going, what in the fat is this program doing? What in the world is wrong with the athletic department at USC? Because obviously somebody has scrambled their brain down there.
Yeah, it's been a perplexing run for sure over the last, what are we talking, almost a decade now of USC being kind of a almost but not quite kind of program. Every year they get the benefit of the doubt every year, right? They're in August, they're a world beater, and in the preseason poll, they're in the top 15 because everybody just assumes it's USC and the talent and everything else. But obviously, the coaching wasn't what it needed to be. I don't think the talent now is what it was. I mean, I remember when we went down there and played, and you looked at the talent on the offensive side of the ball, and you saw, all right, Slovis, has been really good. He's legit. He's an NFL caliber quarterback. Drake London, terrific, off the charts, great receiver. But that was sort of it, right? You look at USC over the years, and you've got like 3 or 4 deep of wide receivers and tight ends who are just world beaters, right? How are you going to cover all these guys? That's not the case this year. It's a different talent level right now, and obviously some of that is on the head coach, and he's no longer the head coach. But it is perplexing. There was the whole Ed Orgeron thing, right? I mean, he comes in as an interim guy. He kicks butt, does great. They send him packing. He goes to LSU. He wins a national title. So USC needs to find the right head coach, and when they do, they're going to be world beaters again because they've got the history, they've got the pedigree, they've got the recruiting base in Southern California. And your statement is spot on. The Pac-12 is better off when USC is great, just like for basketball. The Pac-12 is better off when Arizona and UCLA are great. That said, as not the biggest USC fan on the planet, I'm okay with where we are.
Shocking.
But your point is well taken. The conference needs its blue bloods to rise to the top, no doubt.
Where they were then, 15 unique and previously untold accounts of the rise to the pinnacle of sports broadcasting, 15 famous broadcasters, including our guest Scott Reiss. One more on the NCAA as a whole. What do you think about the BCS and your thoughts on Cincinnati? Here's Oregon based on the head-to-head over Ohio State, but yet Michigan is ahead of Michigan State based on head-to-head. So we know NCAA football and the BCS rankings are completely subjective. Sometimes I don't even know what the committee's looking at. I know it's only week 2 of it. It's a lot different than the NCAA basketball where you play to win and they play games. We saw the Champions Classic the other night on your former network, and then a monster game tomorrow night at Pauley Pavilion. We'll get to Stanford Hoops in a second, but let's talk about the BCS and what do you think about the top 10 of the BCS and maybe who do you think's missing? Is it Cincinnati?
Yeah, to me it is. And look, I mean, everybody loves the Cinderella, right? And that's what's so great about the NCAA basketball tournament. That's who you're watching and you're rooting for, and you love these mid-major teams that make runs in the second round and the Sweet 16 and whatnot. Cincinnati can play with anybody, right? And the system is set up for them to fail, right? It's set up to keep them out of the big party, the big dance, and we all know it. If Cincinnati played Oregon on a neutral field, I think Cincinnati wins the game. I really do. And that's, but we'll never know if things don't change and a couple of teams don't drop games and allow the Bearcats to move up. But the answer here is obvious, right? And it's going to happen. It's just a question of when. You gotta expand the field, right? I mean, to me, 8 is the number. I know they're talking about 12 and whatever. That's fine, but you get 8 teams and in the playoff. Your problem is solved. All this goes away finally. All the hand wringing about the group of 5 and this and that, it's all good because you've got 5, conference championships, 5 conference champions from the power conferences. There's 5 out of 8. You've got your best, group of 5 team, which is Cincinnati. Then you got 2 at-larges and 2 teams that are good enough certainly to get in and make noise and beat the big boys along the way. So I think that solves the problem. I think it will happen. Can't come soon enough because, I'm tired of having the same conversation every year about that one group of 5 team that clearly looks good enough to earn a chance to compete and won't get that chance.
Got it, Charlie. Last one for you.
Scott, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to all the off-field stuff with sports. This offseason has been insane with all the conference realignments and everything else. I still don't understand this thing between the Pac-12, the Big Ten, the ACC, and I don't know that anybody really understands any of it. Yeah. Is the Pac-12 going to expand? Do they need to expand in order to compete with everything else that's going on?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. I think that the way this seems to be going is, and again, you take everything with a grain of salt, right? Because not only the realignment and everything you're talking about, but you throw in the whole NIL thing, and that's a whole other, it changes the entire landscape, and I think is going to have effects that we can't even foresee going forward, right? How slippery a slope are we on in terms of, compensating student athletes? Because there's going to come a point where certain universities, and mine is probably one of them, are going to say, whoa, we're not here to be a factory. We're not here to pay these athletes. And that's not what we're all about. So I don't know how that's going to affect things 5, 10, 15 years down the road. But I do feel like the way things are going with the realignment and the idea of sort of super conferences, I think that, I can certainly foresee, and I've thought this for years, 4 16-team super conferences going forward, right? And what that means for the Pac-12, I don't know who those 4 candidates would be. There was a time when we thought, hey, Texas, Oklahoma are going to come to the Pac, and obviously that's not happening. But I do think that at some point that will come into play. The difference with the Pac-12 versus some of the other conferences, and I think I put the Big Ten into this as well, is the focus on academics is still very real. And so, we won't take anybody just because they're a great athletic program, and there have been, well, it takes San Diego State and take Boise State and this and that. It's not that simple. And so I think that the academic standards that the conference continues to espouse and uphold, which I think is a wonderful thing, makes the equation a little more complicated in terms of it's not just a question of we want you. So we'll see. I don't think it's going to happen anytime in the next couple of years, but I wouldn't be surprised if, again, longer term, midterm, long term, we see a 16 team, a Pac 16, and we see a Big 16 and whatever else the other conferences want to call themselves.
Scott Reiss, our guest, the Stanford play-by-play voice for football and basketball. A couple more from me, and we'll let you go. Thanks again for your time. The book, We'll get the book on again after at the end right here.
Sure.
But last couple from me. Let's go into basketball here a little bit. Why don't you give me a quick synopsis on Stanford hoops? Jared Haas developing a pretty good program there. I like watching Stanford basketball. Obviously, the conference now this year is going to be a monster conference, UCLA. I don't know how good Arizona is going to be, but boy, they're going to play a 9:00 game midnight on the East Coast with Villanova on Friday night. At Pauley Pavilion with number 2 UCLA and number 4 Villanova, both won pretty handily on Tuesday night. Give me your Pac-12 outlook, synopsis, and a little bit on Stanford because you've had one game already.
Yeah, Pac-12 as a whole, the way it looks, at least on paper, heading into the season, UCLA and Oregon, we all know what UCLA is, right? There's no mystery there. Oregon, you talk about reloading with transfers. The guys that they have brought in are legit dudes. They already had a foundation of about 2 or 3 really good holdovers from last year. But the list of transfers, they've got about 4 who are, Jacob Young from Rutgers is one of them. They've got about 4 guys who are, difference makers, all coming into the program at the same time. And Dana Altman is one of the best coaches in America. So no reason for me to believe Oregon is not an Elite 8 contender type of team right off the bat, again, with a 1-game sample size. I think that after that, it gets really muddled. And I think there are probably 7 other teams that can lay claim to finishing 3rd, 4th, 5th in the conference and being NCAA tournament sort of teams, right? I certainly hope Stanford is in that mix and is one of those teams. To Charlie's point about not being able to keep track of the who's in what conference, we played Tarleton State the other night, Stanford's opener. And when I first looked at the game notes, I Tarleton State's in the WAC? I had no idea. I didn't know, right? The second year in the WAC, who knew? We'll see how the Stanford season is going to be interesting. A lot of lost talent. Zaire Williams is up on the screen there, lottery pick. But not your typical college 5-star one and done, and that he didn't come in and set the world on fire and lead us to the promised land. He came in and averaged 10 points a game and missed 9 games, 10 games because of some Buster's gone again. Bye-bye.
Yeah, he'll be back.
Was I boring him? Is that
no? I think he had a little too much last night.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway, the point is last year, I think there were some internal issues, and those issues have been solved through attrition. And now you have what appears to be a team that is all in on the goal, all buying in. Jared Haas is such a phenomenal human being, and I want him and this staff to succeed so badly, right? I know how badly they want it. I know how invested they are in Stanford basketball. And I just hope with every fiber of my being that this is the year that they finally break through. It's been, 2 or 3 seasons during his coaching tenure where they've been in, February, they've been projected as a 10 seed in the NCAA tournament and then stumble down the stretch and they just haven't gotten over the hump. And, last year they were 14-8. They were they were good. And then we lost the last 5 games. There were some internal issues and what have you. No big dance. So I hope this is the year. Very, very young, but talented. They've got another 5-star kid, Harrison Ingram, who was really, really good in the opener on Tuesday night. So, cautiously optimistic, but I think they may take more lumps early in the season. And this is a team that's going to be a lot better in February, March than it is now.
All right, we'll let you go on this. Did you hear anything about the big game? Because my game this week was Cal USC. That's canceled. Have you had any word about Cal yet?
I have heard absolutely nothing. I can't imagine. I guess after COVID, it sort of changes the when you say things like "I can't imagine that would ever happen." Now that sort of goes out the window. Now we can imagine anything.
I can't imagine the BCS is voting the way they are.
Right. But canceling big game, I would hope that they meaning the city of Berkeley included, would do everything that they can to work this out and figure it out so that a game that means so much to so many in this area can actually go on a schedule.
All right. As we let you go, I didn't realize this. You were born in Chicago. We have a similar background. You were born in Chicago like I was. I was born in a suburb. You lived in Southern California as a kid like I did. And then you came up to the Bay Area. I started before high school up here in the Bay Area. And you've been here, other than your ESPN stint, you've been here for a long time from your Stanford days to that. Well, how old were you when you left Chicago? Yeah, four for me. All right. So you don't remember any snowy winters.
I can't say, I don't claim the Cubs. I can't say, I have great memories of Chicago as a kid. I actually bounced around to about 4 different states before I was 5 years old, and then was in LA for the rest of my childhood. So I'm California, pretty much through and through.
I'm not sitting here with 2 Dodgers fans, am I?
I am not at liberty to say that publicly because I
am. Lord have mercy. Oh, Lord have mercy. So, save me, Lord.
I will tell you this. I grew up a Dodger fan because I grew up in LA.
Right.
But, when I got back here after ESPN and I was with Comcast and my job is partially hosting Giants pregame and postgame shows, I got on the bandwagon really quickly.
Yeah.
I bet you did.
There was nobody more pro-Giants than I was from September 2008 through the present, because all of a sudden they go to World Series, I go to World Series.
Yes.
So, yay, orange and black. And I've certainly, I've covered them.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just met a true broadcaster.
Right, there you go. That's what we do.
Nobody
we have allegiances. Wherever you go, we are paid to play. That's what we are.
Nobody's more bandwagon than Vasi Vada Party when the check clears. When the Giants don't play the Dodgers, I'm all for it. That's and right. Nobody and when the Dodgers play the Giants, I tell them I take it for free when I was doing the NBC sports stuff here. But Fox has treated me well. The Giants have treated me well. They treated you well. Let me ask you one thing, because you did a lot of baseball. I know we were going to let you go here, but I just want to ask you, since you covered baseball, talk about the Giants a little bit. How about Buster Posey? You got here the year that he got drafted. You've seen his whole career. You follow baseball. But talk about Buster Posey a little bit in this baseball year coming off of COVID.
Yeah, Buster is so impressive. I thought that I remember doing a KNBR shift at the beginning of the baseball season this year and having a conversation about Hall of Fame candidacy. And in particular, for me, I thought both Bumgarner and Posey were fascinating Hall of Fame cases, because both came in like a ball of fire, put up every accolade you could possibly imagine, and won 3 titles during that 5-year stretch. But then all of a sudden, both kind of started to tail off in about year 9 or 10 of their respective careers. And, generally speaking, you want to be in the Hall of Fame, 8 years of glory is not quite good enough, right? So how do you balance how incredible those, 8 years were with kind of the mediocrity that came after it? And, then Posey opts out last year. Remember, the 2 years prior to the opt-out, I think he averaged 7 home runs and hit 260 or 265. So, all of a sudden you're starting to put up multiple years of very pedestrian numbers. That hurts you, right? When you're talking about Hall of Fame. So to me, not only was this year so incredible to watch and such a great story, and obviously the Giants and the 107 wins and everything else, but Posey cemented Cooperstown this year. Absolute lock, no question, because of this season, right? I still think he probably would have gotten in were it not for this year. But it was not a slam dunk first ballot. Now you come back after 3 years of mediocrity and opting out, and at age 34, you come back and you do what he did. You hit 320 bombs and still great defense and the whole thing, and you're an all-star. You're locked in. So that's what was so cool about this year for me, was I think Buster cemented what was already a great, unbelievable legacy, but I think he put the absolute dagger in that this year. Bumgarner, I think, is still an open question, right? You ask, 10 people, is he a Hall of Famer? You might get 5 yes and 5 no. So we'll see. We'll see on that front. But the Giants this year, what can I say that hasn't been said? Nobody saw it coming. Everybody thought that in May, in July, in September, the bubble would burst and all of a sudden they would lose 12 out of 14 and they would be, they're good, but they're not that. They never did. And 107 wins is an absolutely stupid, astronomical number. And, you guys this is a gambling show, right? So I can throw this out. What was the over-under on Giants? I think it was 73.
Charlie, I thought it was 77, right?
I think so.
It was in the 70s. It was in the 70s.
Okay, so it was 75, somewhere in that. I can't imagine that in the history of baseball, there has been a team that clobbered its number by more than 30 games.
Yeah, I can't either.
You know, it may never happen again, right? So, I mean, that gives you just sort of the perspective on how incredible it was.
I just want to know if the sportsbooks paid it at win 78 or they had to make you wait till the end of the year when the ticket sets.
I don't know. I'm not a gambling guy. I don't know that for.
You know they made him wait.
Of course they did. Of course they did. All right, Scott Reiss, the voice of the Stanford Cardinal football and basketball, formerly at ESPN, Comcast Sportsnet Bay Area, Fox Channel 2 in Oakland. He's written a book. It's called Where They Were Then, 15 Unique and Previously Untold Accounts of the Rise to the Pinnacle of Sports Broadcasting, with 15 real well-known names, including one chapter by our guest, Scott Reiss. Scott, it's been too long. We'll have a baseball conversation. Maybe I'll run into you somewhere on the Pac-12 road here when we have a TV game. But it's great to see you. Glad you're well. Glad you and everybody's doing well. And I look forward to seeing you down the road. Thanks for the time.
Sounds good, guys. Appreciate it.
Scott, thank you, man.
You got it, Charlie. All right. See you, boys.
Okay. Scott Reiss, we thank him again. The book is Where They Were Then, 15 previous and unique untold stories and accounts of the rise pinnacle of sports broadcasting. You can catch Scott Reiss on Stanford Radio, 1050 locally in the Bay Area, and also on the Learfield Network as well, too. All right, when we come back in 30 seconds, we got NFL football, we've got college football, we've got a lot of talked about, the NBA, and some NHL, too, on the Make the Money and Run podcast with Vasu Vadaparty and Charlie O. Don't forget, I'll be there at the Britannia Arms in Cupertino on Sunday, 12:45 Eastern, 9:45 for a live show. Come down if you live in the area. And if you don't, then get online. I'll have the link up on our social media pages, by 6 o'clock today and tomorrow, and then on the weekends. And you can join us with the link and come on and talk to us, give us comments, questions, anywhere you want. All right, back in 30 seconds with the rest of the Make the Money and Run podcast for this Thursday, November 11th, right? November 11th. Oh, thank you to all our veterans.
Veterans Day.
Thank you to all our veterans as well, those who serve, those who will serve, and those who continue to serve. Thank you very much for your service. All right, 30 seconds from the Make the Money and Run podcast. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu Vadaparty, Charlie O here. We are sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino and Capitola. Come down on Sunday to see us at Capitola for the NFL kickoff show. 9:45, the doors will open. NFL Sunday ticket, breakfast, Bloody Marys, the beach. You cannot beat it as well, too. Or if you're in Silicon Valley, check out the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. I was there last Sunday. What a great crowd it was. I'll be back there in 2 weeks as well. We'll put a link up for those that want to join us online as well as we welcome you back into the studio. Vasu Vadaparty, Charlie O here. Let's get to the NFL here. The Baltimore Ravens are going to be at Miami tonight. We don't know if Tua Tagovailoa is going to play. Miami had a win last week against the Houston Texans. They won 17-9. Not exactly a thrilling offensive game, but if you had Miami, then you did win because, as we say on the show, they all pay the same, no matter what game you play. They all pay the same. So some NFL news, and we'll recap last week a little bit. I haven't had a chance to talk to Charlie about last week yet. Thanks to Scott Reiss for coming on as well, too. His book out on Amazon, and you can see it in stores probably next week in time for the holidays. All right. Cam Newton re-signed with the Panthers today. How about that? I know Sam Darnold got hurt. Wow. PJ Walker was there, and Cam Newton was on the street looking for a job, and he goes home again. They're going to visit Arizona, who's only 8-1. How about the Tennessee Titans? Boy, they lose Derrick Henry, and they go into the Rams. By the way, if you saw our picks on Sunday, I loved the Titans. Plus 7.5. It looked easy. It was easy. I didn't have to stress about it. Actually, nobody who had the Titans said to stress about it. Only stresses were the Rams fans. They get to go to they host New Orleans this week. They've had a tough 2-game stretch here. They won at Tampa Bay. They lost last week. The Browns and Patriots, both 5-4. That's a playoff matchup. And the Bills losing to Jacksonville last week. They only got 6
What was
points.
that about?
Unbelievable.
Talk about puking on yourself.
Unbelievable. The Bills are going to host Bills coming off a loss. They are, I forget who they're playing, but the Bills coming off a loss, they'll play this week. And the Chargers, they lead the AFC West now by virtue of the head-to-head. They will host the Minnesota Vikings, who basically blew a lead against Baltimore on Sunday last week. They ended up
Buffalo
losing.
has the Jets.
Yeah, Buffalo has the Jets. Okay, so hopefully maybe poor Robert Saleh, maybe they'll end up making up for whatever they couldn't do there. The Eagles will visit Denver at 5 wins also. The Seattle Seahawks and my fantasy football team get Russell Wilson back this week after 6 weeks. He's going to come back.
Maybe. It's not official yet. But
it's not official, but it sounds like he's going to play. Sounds like Aaron Rodgers is going to play. It's the 4:25 slot on Fox on Sunday afternoon. So apparently they think that they're going to get both quarterbacks. Or actually, they make those schedules at the beginning of the year. So we don't know what the case is. But Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers will be a good matchup. And then Sunday night, the Raiders host the Chiefs, a big AFC West matchup as well. And then Monday night, the 49ers visit the Rams. Charlie, NFL Week 10. What do you think?
Well, first of all, the Monday night game. Sorry, ESPN, you drew that bad card. The Rams come into Levi's. That normally should be an exciting game. I'm afraid that's not looking too good. 49ers are just awful. I mean, the
defensively, it's not even Garoppolo. They're just awful.
Oh yeah, no, they're just awful in general. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I mean, I know they lost Saleh as the defensive coordinator, but man, that team just seems in disarray all on both sides of the ball. And the Rams, good Lord. I mean, Matthew Stafford has made such a difference, and I think Von Miller will probably be available to play this week. Like they need more help on defense, so that'll be an interesting one there, because I just think the Rams are huge. They're going on. I want to see how Dallas does this week.
Yeah.
I mean, Dallas has been so highly touted, but I've still got big questions about Dallas.
My other favorite play last week was Denver +10. You like Denver +10.
Yep.
And I had Minnesota +7. So it was a good day on Sunday for both of us as well. But Dallas will be interesting. They've got the division pretty much sewn up now based on who's in that division. But they need to compete, and they need to come out and play better than they did against Denver. I'm sure a lot of people scratching their heads -10 against the Denver team that had a tough time offensively. Let's go back last week here a little bit. Cleveland beat up on Cincinnati. That was a shock. We just talked about Dallas and Denver. Atlanta upset New Orleans. That's who New Orleans lost on a game-winning kick by Koo. I think that's his third game-winning kick for the Falcons this year. Miami gets their second win. No Tua. Brissett started. The Giants upset the Raiders. The Raiders had a tough 2 weeks, tough month.
And you called that one on the west to the east thing. I mean, the Raiders just, I mean, you know what? That's not an excuse that should be valid anymore. But every game with the Raiders, they're going west to east, so they're going to lose. I think they've got that locked in their heads.
Yeah, 3-point favorites. And I did not like, we talked about it last Friday when we had their Friday football show. I said, they're not going to win on Sunday. And then and on top of the fact that they've already had a bad week with the Henry Ruggs incident and everything like that going on, the Gruden stuff is still there. LA outlasts Philadelphia. Justin Herbert had a great game on Sunday at Philly. Love first start for the Packers. They're hoping it's his only start until they figure out, because they could have beaten Kansas City, because I like Kansas City's defense. They did not look very good offensively, and Patrick Mahomes struggling. No Murray or Hopkins. We said Arizona ripped San Francisco, so it shows that you can play with backups. 10 straight losses at home for the 49ers. We talked about the Titans stunning the Rams on Sunday night. That defense was outstanding. That's what they're going to have to do. And for our purposes here, we said 2 weeks ago the Dogs were 10-5, either covering or outright winners. 9-4 last week. Actually, 10-4 if you include the Bears and Pittsburgh. So we're talking about 20-9 the last 2 weeks for underdogs covering or winning outright, Charlie, for the Make the Money and Run crowd. That's a very important stat, because I love underdogs. You know I love underdogs. If there's any chance that an underdog will cover, I will take the underdog based on a questionable point spread. So here we are into week 10. The underdogs are still about 10 games over 500, I believe. I was going to get that number for this week, but about 10 games over 500. There are some games this week in the NFL. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins cover 7.5 tonight because their defense is pretty good. That's a lot on the road to take. Bye weeks, by the way, for the Week 10. Chicago, Cincinnati, the Giants, and Houston. 3 of the 4 teams are very happy they got the bye. The Giants won last week.
Yes.
So we'll see. Definitely. Falcons, Cowboys, Saints, Titans, Jaguars, Colts, Browns, Patriots. That'll be interesting. The Patriots are favored there. By the way, your hometown. Let me put this up here. I don't know if you saw the post I put up last week. The Cincinnati weather station decided to put a billboard above. I don't know what the name of the Cincinnati stadium is, but they put a billboard above the stadium that said, check out Channel 5 or Channel 7, WLW, whatever it is.
Channel 5.
Channel 5 that says, we're more accurate than Baker Mayfield passes. As if you don't need any bulletin board material more than that to put a sign that was taken a photo of and put on. Well, let me tell you how accurate Baker Mayfield was on Sunday. Actually, I don't need to because you saw it all Sunday afternoon in Cincinnati in a rout. And the Bengals go from the number 1 seed 2 weeks ago after beating Baltimore to last in the AFC North, still 5-4, and the division's still up for grabs. But that's a 4-spot drop based on 2 weeks in a row for the Cincinnati Bengals, Charlie.
Only in Cincinnati would they do something that stupid. That they've had a little taste of success, and it's gone right to their heads. They don't realize that they've been so bad for so long. By the way, it's Paul Brown Stadium.
Paul Brown Stadium, you're right. I should have known that.
The Bengals are so stupid. Everybody else has sold the naming rights to their stadium. Paul Brown, Mike Brown, who is the son of Paul Brown, won't sell the naming rights because it's his dad's. It's named after his dad, who started the Cleveland Browns, and then when they sold the Cleveland Browns, came and started the Bengals. And here's a guy that could be making, probably $20 million a year selling the naming rights. And, oh no, and then he complains about losing money. He's an idiot. I don't like, did you get that idea? Okay, never mind.
Well, that's your Cincinnati Bengals fandom for all those years. So
no. You have to understand, I was never a Bengals fan. They came into existence the year I left Ohio.
Oh, right. Okay.
I was a Cleveland Browns fan, and my Cleveland Browns team packed up in a moving van and moved to Baltimore. So I no longer have any allegiance to any football team in the state of Ohio. Okay. They're gone. And someday I'm going to go and spit somewhere in Baltimore. Okay. That's all I'm going to say.
Make the Money and Run podcast for Thursday, November 11th, Veterans Day. To all you service men and women out there, thank you for your service. Thank you for your continued service, and thank you for your previous service. Britannia Arms of Cupertino is the longest-running British pub and restaurant in Silicon Valley on the border of San Jose and Cupertino. BritanniaArmsDeanza.com, 408-252-7262. Britannia Arms of Capitola, 10 years old on the shores of the Pacific Ocean. On a day like this, we don't want to tell you what it looks like on the East Coast, but it's really nice out here. I'm thinking about heading down there right now after this show. Facebook.com/Britannia Arms Capitola, 831-464-2583. I will be there on Sunday morning, West Coast time in Capitola. Come join us live or online. There is the link right there. I will post the link for the show right there as we get closer to Sunday. Please join us online or come down and have a Bloody Mary or breakfast and enjoy the beach, enjoy some football, whether it's action, fantasy football, daily fantasy sports, or just fandom. NFL Sunday Ticket, big time down there on the shores of the Pacific Ocean in Capitola Village. All right, Vasivada Party, Charlie O here. The Ravens and Dolphins. I know it's not a big, exciting game, but this is a big game for the Ravens. They can't take this lightly going in tonight, especially with the standings the way they are. They are leading in first place. They've already had their bye week, so they've only played 8 games. This will be week 9 for them. The Steelers won their game last Monday night. They'll have week 9 this week as well, too. Cleveland and Cincinnati haven't had their bye weeks. They've already played 9 games. So 6-2 for Baltimore, 5-3 for Pittsburgh, who's won 4 in a row. Cleveland, off their win at Cincinnati last week, has a tiebreaker edge on Cincinnati. They are both 5-4. Cleveland and New England. The Bengals have a week off this week. That's their bye. But Baltimore and Miami 2-7. Look pretty good against Houston, but who hasn't looked good against Houston? Still a 7.5 point favorite on the road, 46.5 for the Ravens, Charlie. Give me a quick thought on Thursday Night Football.
Well, I mean, the Ravens, you know, every year we come in to the season and we go, Ravens, Ravens, Ravens. And then by the end of the season, we're going, Ravens? You know, and so this is where we've got to see the Ravens do something because, you know, right now, 6-2, we're going, okay, yeah, okay, Ravens. And I think Lamar's got what, 5 rushing touchdowns so far. And, you know, we're all excited and he's doing what we want him to do. You know, if he's your fantasy quarterback, you're thrilled. But you know, they got to do something. And they're going up against a Miami team that's wounded, that's not doing well. They need to whoop up on this team. You know, if they're really who we think they are or who they say they are, they need to, I mean, this game should be over by the third quarter. Okay, that's what I'm looking for tonight from the Ravens. I want this game over by the third quarter. Now, I don't think Miami's going to roll over and die. That's going to be the problem for the Ravens. But really, if the Ravens are who they say they are, this game should be over by the end of the third quarter. I
think the defense for the Dolphins is a little underrated. The way they played this year, their offense has not done very much. And now the quarterback issues they've got with Tagovailoa staying healthy. Jacoby Brissett may start tonight for the Dolphins, and he's very serviceable, and they can get things done. The Ravens defense has given up points this year. I mean, all you got to do is go back 2 weeks ago when Cincinnati came in and just rolled over that Ravens defense. And Joe Burrow, I mean, Brissett's no Joe Burrow, but still, this is a chance for a home team to really sneak up and take those underdog stats a little bit higher for the numbers as well too. All right, we move on to college football here. One big game tonight in the top 25. The number 21 Pitt Panthers will go up against Cincinnati. Number 5. I'm sorry, that's Friday. North Carolina and Pittsburgh tonight. The line on the game is Pittsburgh by 6. There you go, 6.5, 72 the total. And if you saw North Carolina and Wake Forest, 72 is going to be by halftime based on how they played last week. And, of course, Wake Forest blew the 17-point lead. I called it in the fourth quarter. Dumb me to do that. I ended up losing the game by 3 points. By the way, the line was 2.5, so that was a loss for me. But Pittsburgh, 6.5, 72. Kenny Pickett, a Heisman Trophy candidate. North Carolina, Sam Howell. Everybody was talking about North Carolina challenging Clemson this year in the ACC. They've had a rough time. Wake Forest got their first loss. They still lead in the ACC. Other top 25 matchups this weekend. Cincinnati, number 5, will go to South Florida tomorrow. About a 23-point favorite there. Michigan, Penn State, at Penn State Saturday. Oklahoma at Baylor. Auburn hosts Mississippi State. Ohio State hosts Purdue, who's upset 2 top 10 teams this year. Texas A&M, Mississippi, Oregon, number 3 in the country. They'll host Oregon State. They've had a tough time with Washington State over the years. The new coaching change with Rolovich being out there, the new coaching change has given them a shot in the arm. Pump. I just thought I'd throw that in there for that.
You didn't just do that.
I did. I stole it from somebody, but I thought it was pretty funny. Yep. New head coaching, definitely a shot in the arm for the Cougars up there. They will host Washington State. Oklahoma State at number 10 will host TCU, who got a big upset last week over Baylor. Jerry Kill, the interim coach. Wake Forest hosts North Carolina State. Notre Dame at number 9 will go to Virginia. Michigan State hosts Maryland. And number 1 Georgia will go at Tennessee. They're probably a 2-touchdown favorite already at Georgia with that defensive front that they have. Last week,
right now they're minus 20.
Yeah, see, 3 touchdowns on the road. Tennessee's got a pretty good offense, but they can't stop anybody, as evidenced by the high scores that they've got. I'd look for the over in that. Last week, Georgia ripped Missouri. Ohio State held off Nebraska. UNC comes back on Wake Forest. Mississippi over Liberty. Illinois stuns Minnesota. Pittsburgh rips Duke. Cincinnati close with Tulsa. Notre Dame over Navy. Oklahoma State over West Virginia. TCU, Baylor, A&M defense shuts out Auburn. BYU beat Idaho State. I don't know how they put them on the schedule, but Alabama has New Mexico State this week, so that probably is why as well, too. Oregon held off Washington. Last week, Jimmy Lake got himself in some trouble by grabbing a player, and Michigan covers and rolls versus Indiana. San Diego State holds off Hawaii. Thoughts from last week, Charlie, going into this week with the BCS?
I didn't have anything that really stood out to me other than the Michigan State's loss at Purdue. That one, and you can talk about, it's a letdown, la da 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 da. You can't happen. That can't happen. Here you are. You're in the playoffs. You're going to make it happen, and you go in and you just you stub your big toe at Purdue. Now I know Purdue. Don't get me wrong. Purdue has been a team that we've talked about all season long as being a team that can trip you up, and they're a good football team.
They're a good underdog team, that's for sure.
But you can't go, if you're Michigan State, you can't go in there and lose that football team. Lose to that football team. And Purdue was all over them early in that game, and you just knew that Michigan State was in trouble right from the get-go. And I was really, really disappointed in the way Michigan State played in that game. And frankly, if it puts them out of contention for the playoffs, so be it. They did it to themselves. So that sorry, Michigan State fans. And I have some love in my heart for the Spartans, having lived in East Lansing for a couple of years and had some friends way back when that played there. But man, that was awful. That was awful. That should not have happened.
NCAA BCS rankings: Georgia, Alabama, Oregon, Ohio State, Cincinnati at number 5, Michigan at 6, Michigan State at 7, Oklahoma at 8, Notre Dame at 9, and Oklahoma State found their way to number 10. They're a really good football team defensively, and Mike Gundy has them going as well too. And maybe if any of these teams trip up, Cincinnati, by the way, Cincinnati and Georgia, the only undefeated teams in the rankings, but Cincinnati in the number 5 spot. Scott Reiss, our guest earlier, does Stanford football and basketball. He thinks Cincinnati should be in the top 4, as do a lot of people, as do probably both of us think that Cincinnati should be there. I'm not sure if Oregon should be there in the top 4. As much as I have love for the Pac-12, I'm not sure that they should be there.
Yeah,
in which case then
Vasu, I want West Coast representation there.
Yeah,
I really do. But you know what? I think this is manufactured. I've talked about it being manufactured.
It's all subjective
for the West Coast, and I just don't believe they belong there right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna put Cincinnati up there, then you got to move Oregon and Ohio State down because Ohio State lost to Oregon. So that's one way to go. All right, we'll have a full Friday football show, 1 Eastern, 10 a.m. on the West Coast tomorrow for the Friday football show, the NFL rest of Week 10, and more college football to talk about for Saturday and Sunday. Don't forget our social media every day at 6 Eastern by 3 o'clock during the week, and then starts at 11 a.m. on Saturdays Eastern, 8 o'clock 3 times on Saturday, twice on Sunday. I'll be at the Britannia Arms in Capitola. Real quick in the NBA, before we get out of here, Philadelphia, Toronto, Utah plays tonight. They've got and the Clippers are host, and the Clippers are playing Miami after Miami loses in overtime to the Lakers. Utah is a 10-point favorite over the Pacers tonight at home, 10-2-16. How about the Warriors? They're 10-1. Defensive key. Wiggins playing very well. The dunk that he had last night was unstoppable. Couldn't believe that he got up that high. Chicago and Washington, both winners on Wednesday. They lead the conference in the East, both at 8-3. The Sixers and Nets, Sixers without Embiid, have lost 2 in a row. They're 8-4, along with the Brooklyn Nets, who lost to the Bulls earlier in the week this week. Early NBA thoughts. We're 12 games in now, Charlie, about a sixth of the way there.
Not anything real surprising, except to me that the Warriors are, man, I mean, they've got to be the surprise of the season so far. And I got to tell you, I don't know if you saw it, but they had the other night the play-by-play call of the Atlanta play-by-play team when Curry got his 50th point and the crowd went nuts. And it was, what's the big deal? 50 points, big deal. I'm going, come on. You don't have to stand up and give the guy a standing ovation. All you got to do is say, well, the crowd's really happy that Curry got 50 points. But to denigrate a guy getting 50 points in an NBA game, and he's what, 34?
Yeah. He's the oldest player to get 50 and 10 in a game. And Bob Rathman, the TV voice with Dominique Wilkins on the TV, thought that I can understand their point, because I heard Greg Papa say this, who did the Warriors for a long time out here. He said from their point of view, and Steve Kerr never does it, that he left him in there to get the record, and Steve Kerr never leaves guys in there for stat padding, and that's what they felt he was doing, and that's why they denigrated it a little bit from their point of view. But I agree with you a little bit.
Everybody,
I'm telling you what Greg Papa said.
Yeah,
That's not my opinion.
You know, I like Greg, and I can understand that, but come on,
I agree.
You know,
all right. Well, 3 NBA games tonight. College basketball started. The Champions Classic. The good games on Tuesday night with Kansas and Michigan State. Kentucky and Duke. Kentucky needs to work on their offense a little bit. Monster game on Friday night in Pauley Pavilion with UCLA number 2. They beat up on Santa Barbara on Tuesday night, and then Villanova won by 40 on Tuesday afternoon as well too. They're going to match up number 2 and number 4 in the country. They're going to play at midnight Eastern, 9:00 at Pauley Pavilion on ESPN2 because ESPN will have the Bulls and Warriors on as well. All right, final thoughts for you, Charlie, as we wrap up the Make the Money and Run podcast for Thursday.
Hey, you know what? It looks like a great weekend of sports. I mean, how much better does it get? NBA, college basketball, college football, NFL, NHL. I mean, you know, come on, folks. This is great. Get out your wagering card. We are in heaven.
Thanks again to the veterans on this Veterans Day for your service as well. Absolutely. For your service, for your previous service, for those that will serve. We appreciate you, and thank you every day for the freedoms that you provide to us as well too. Make the Money and Run a podcast. We'll have a full football show tomorrow. We'll give you all the selections by 6:00 Eastern today. Tomorrow, 3 times on Saturday, 3 times twice on Sunday as well too. We're sponsored by the Britannia Arms of Cupertino. Check them out next time you're in Silicon Valley, or get to the Capitola Britannia Arms on the ocean of the Pacific Shores in Santa Cruz in the little Capitola Village there. I will be there on Sunday morning, 9:45 for the NFL kickoff show as well too. All right, for Charlie O, I'm Vasi Vadaparty. That's the Make the Money and Run podcast for this Thursday, November 11th. Thank you to the veterans again. We will see you tomorrow, 1:00 Eastern, 10:00 a.m. Pacific, for the Make the Money and Run Friday football show. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy your day, and good luck with your games.